are in the state, what their economic impact is, where they think it's going to expand. She can't come because she's testifying in front of Congress, so she's going to have to do October 17th, which is a good problem to have, I think, for us. So she's going to come. Her name is Susanna Short. She's actually a township resident. She's going to come on October 17th. On October 4th, Frank Vitolo is going to come. He's a local land use attorney who represented the clients in Morristown who were awarded the license on Ridgedale Avenue. He's going to come and potentially bring some of his clients to talk about how that process went in Morristown and what we could expect on our end if we were to open ourselves up to any of these businesses. So aside from that, I don't have anything to do on September 19th unless we wanted to come back and meet for some purpose. But I think as of now, we'll just plan for October 4th and October 17th, if that sounds good to everyone.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you still have a plan to do the open public comment?
Yeah, public comment.
Afterwards?
Yeah, so I think on the 17th, I'll talk to Susanna when she comes in to see how long she thinks she'll be. I do worry I don't want to have public comment right after a panelist because I don't want them grilling them. But I'd kind of like to just do it all in one meeting rather than coming back.
Yep.
So I think we will probably have a public comment on the 17th. Yeah. So any questions before we turn it over to Chief Shear?
Is it anticipated then, if the 19th is going to come the 4th and the 4th to the 17th, so to speak, that there'll be one more after the 17th?
I don't know. I don't think we're going to, TBD. I mean, I think we got through a lot of questions last week. This one will be shorter. So I think we'll kind of figure it out from there. I don't think we necessarily need to. I think we'll probably actually wind up having a lot of phone calls after the last meeting as we put together a report. And for the report, I pretty much anticipate drafting the report myself and then socializing it with everyone. And if certain members want to help out with that, we can. But I don't think we necessarily need a fifth or fourth meeting after the fourth meeting. So we'll take it one step at a time. We're not in a rush. We're not against the deadline. I think we'll continue to have more and more questions as we hear from more and more people. So. But I appreciate Bill and Linda reaching out with some topics for FAQs to provide to the public down the road, which was super helpful. And we also got some questions for Chief Shear ahead of time too, which was helpful. So, all right, well, with that, I'll just turn it over to the Chief and we can get started.
So a lot of the information that I'm going to kind of give, a lot of it's, I don't want to say speculative, but there still isn't a ton of data out there to pull from. I know when I was first tasked with it and I started kind of reaching out to other towns that had already been allowing cannabis, kind of realized there's really not as many as that you would think. From the research I've done, and again, it changes day to day now because everybody's starting to move so fast. But as far as recreation only retail type businesses, there's really still less than 10 that are currently open. One most recently opened up in Rockaway, and I spoke with the chief over there about kind of concerns he had. And really didn't have a ton of concerns. I guess there was some discussion between them and the the town and the owners, the security part of it, how they were going to kind of keep the area secure. So that seems to be the biggest part about from the police department's perspective is the security function as far as the businesses go. In Morris County, Boonton has one of the grow areas, and he said they haven't had any issues, not really an uptick of calls. They have sometimes the complaints from neighbors about odor because of the grow operation, and then just general alarm type calls, kind of what we see from any other business. And same thing with Rockaway. They haven't had criminal activity, but again, it's only been open for a short period of time. And I also reached out to West Milford, and any of you guys familiar with the area, they have some businesses that are popping up as far as the retail end. And they also have one of the, the kind of pop-up businesses that aren't necessarily regulated just yet. And they kind of see where they have the bigger issues with the pop-up as opposed to the store. The pop-up place that's not being regulated, they have some medical calls too, and different issues with that.
If I can, but just so I understand what you mean by pop-up, what type of pop-up?
Kind of like the gray area pop-up stores that.
What is a gray
truck
area?
Yes, yep. And
I've seen those.
Yes, and we had one in our town which created a complaint. And caused us to do some enforcement because it wasn't legal. What they were doing wasn't legal. So
I thought you meant I didn't want to assume incorrectly.
And that's where they see the, the issue that they're having here, whether it be medical calls and things like that. Whereas with their business that just opened up, it's been fine. It's, led to a little bit more traffic. And, from our concern, if there are only, less than 10 retail, we could see having a business maybe have, significant traffic coming into it at first, just because there's not that many legal dispensaries. I think for the most part, you're seeing, Essex County, Union County, Passaic County. As far as Morris County, you're really seeing Rockaway is the only place right now that's currently open, at least that's showing up on the sites that I had looked at. Kind of what I see from this is, cannabis currently being legal from a police standpoint. If I replace cannabis with alcohol, it's another substance that can lead you to being impaired. What do we get concerned about when there's a new liquor store opening up? And that's making sure that we're doing our proper license checks as a police department that we always do anytime a new business comes in, that the money's coming from the right place and the people don't have a criminal record or there's not a criminal element behind it. And then obviously the people that are purchasing the products, ensure that they're not showing up intoxicated and not leaving intoxicated in a manner that's, making them a threat to the roadway. And then the last part with any business that's going to have money on scene is, or valuable goods on scene is shoplifting and robbery type things. Knock on wood, Morris Township, as far as business wise, we're still kind of new to having all these big businesses and so shoplifting had never really been a concern until recently. So we do see that a little bit more and, very low as far as robberies and things like that. So my concern with a new business coming in, whether it be retail or similar, is the same as when any other new business comes in. Meet with the people that are owning it, see what their concerns are, and then make sure that we're able to provide whatever service they need. But speaking to the other chiefs and towns, again, it's still a little bit new, but they're not really seeing, something that really stretches the police department or causes some kind of concern or problem that other businesses have.
Did any of the chiefs talk about, I mean, especially since it's a cash business, aside from debit cards or having bouncers too, was there any complexities that they talked about?
Yeah,
or
so there is. So Rockaway initially, when they were having it, there was, talk to having two armed security guards that they needed to provide, and then they're down to a single security guard. So there has been, and just reviewing, with reviewing the law is the biggest thing is how they're going to be providing that kind of security or whatever they deem fit. Specifically with the retail section, they having the single area for the consumption, it does leave a little bit of concern for us as far as after the consumption of it, leaving and driving, but that's the same kind of concerns that we would have with a bar or similar is, somebody leaving intoxicated.
Question, Chief, going back to what I think Mark touched on,
Yeah.
This being a cash business. I know some of the retail establishments may have put like an ATM debit machine kind of there, but it still is an all cash business, and banking, I believe, is still not allowed for cannabis nationwide. So there's going to be a lot of cash on hand. How are other municipalities dealing with what could be, many thousands of dollars in cash that has to go from
Point A to point
could
B.
be,
Yeah, I mean, that's really what they're leaving it kind of in the hands of the businesses, not really getting involved too much. And again, that's from a police department perspective, we get involved as much as usually as the business wants us to. So I know for us that, big cash businesses prior to this would be, whether it be certain types of restaurants, dry cleaning type places where it's just more likely that cash to be kept on hand and being moved. That is something that we always have concern and more on top of it, not just the concern, from the business, but where the owner of that business lives. If, there's an owner of a business that lives in our town, it's always something that we want to make sure that we're aware of, so that we know to kind of do those, extra checks and stuff like that. But the chiefs that I had talked to, as far as from that recreation standpoint of the cash only, they really kind of left it in the hands of the business owner a little bit. And again, I think too, we're going to see we're still seeing less than 10, and as far as our type of area, West Milford, maybe a little bit more rural than here, Rockaway, a little bit, similar to here. then the other areas, Gloucester County, New Brunswick and Middlesex, South Toms River and Ocean, not necessarily as, maybe just don't match kind of the area that we have. So if there's something that we can think of to put in place, but really to be on them to have some type of security that transport them from point A to point B, or have, good cameras on site that show the area when they're leaving and things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could we talk a little bit more about the locale? So when I think of Morris Township, we don't really have a town center, right? We don't have a real significant business district.
Until I'd say now, I would say East Hanover
The
Avenue.
market
And that
place,
was,
right?
and again, that was for us, that was like, the big bad wolf that came in and
Yeah.
we've adapted to it.
Yes.
But that would, I'd say, would be what I would consider to be our downtown.
Right. So when you, I live in the downtown.
Well, I mean, it's a place people go to get goods.
How well I know.
Yeah.
Way too many. But, so when you think of like the location where they put it in Rockaway, so Rockaway doesn't have town
Yeah.
centers. Do you know where their location is? And
It's
is
right
it-
on, Route 46.
It's on 46.
Yes, I think it's 191, and so it's just like one of those
Okay,
kind of side businesses.
okay.
I'm trying to think what I would compare it to, but kind of just, like they have those little, not strips, but those pop-up areas where there's just 3 stores in a row. And, I'd say now, like it's where I would expect to see it is the same place where I'm driving. I see like the vape store. To me, that's kind of where they seem to be popping up in the newer places, is something similar to that.
Complementary business good for each to have the other nearby.
Yeah.
Point of clarification, I was in attendance the last meeting, and so maybe I misheard, but I didn't think consumption was allowed in retail. Is that incorrect?
Well, the law I was reading today, and again, this could be changing faster than I can keep up with, and I was, reading it specifically today, was that they were allowed to have the one area
Oh, okay.
in some of the businesses. I could be wrong, unless it's part of the micro business area.
No, I'm sure you're right. I thought I heard someone say that at last week's meeting, that retail wasn't, or consumption wasn't allowed as part of the retail license, but it might be.
I'll have to look again, because the class
guys
license I was
remember.
looking at today, and that was from, again, I just was pulling it up off the NJFAQ site to that law, was where they could permit a small single area for consumption or.
Could be a
Yeah, I think they
sampling-
updated it.
Sampling of some
Because
sort.
they keep adjusting the regulations too,
Yeah,
especially with the.
It looks like
state
they're,
regs.
they've been allowed, but they didn't exist yet. So you're probably, their law is probably
Ah.
accurate, I'm just not here.
And I've seen zoning ordinances written that actually prohibit consumption on the premises.
So you can prohibit it.
I believe unless the law is, continually changing, I think so. And I've seen it in more than one ordinance.
But then that gets back to the point that you were making about, leaving the place under the influence, and it's very similar to consuming alcohol under the influence.
Yeah.
And then so what would be the responsibility of local police
Yeah.
to kind of monitor that, and how much additional pressure, if you will, does that put on you and your folks?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's real important that we, I don't want to say treat all business the same, but we make sure that we provide give our due diligence to all places, but we're not single a place out because of what they do or what they provide. But, right now, as part of our patrol, we do check on bar areas, because it's an area that has a great influx of people during a certain amount of time, and just making sure that there's not people that need assistance, or, again, just sometimes our presence deters some type of criminal behavior. So it'd be kind of the same thing as that. But yeah, I mean, that part would be kind of the interesting thing of where that goes. And I mean, I think there's still a lot of things that are going to kind of work its way out through the process, at least from a law enforcement perspective. I know initially when the cannabis had gotten passed, and they, it was, for us that we give our, drug test every 2 years, there was a lot of concern from us as far as how that was going to work. And they were still kind of trying to figure out how a person, and then once they allowed law enforcement to be able to use cannabis, again, there's a lot of other states that have legal cannabis, but there's not a lot of states that allow police to use cannabis. So how we determine whether an officer's under the influence while he's on duty, and also in addition to that, you're intoxicated from alcohol when you can't function due to alcohol, or you're above, a .08. where does marijuana go from that? What is considered to be intoxicated from, marijuana, other than your actions, other than that on face value, sobriety testing.
Can I ask, do you have sobriety testing that you guys apply to
Yeah, so,
comprehensively include?
yes, so we have what we call drug recognition experts, and there's portions of that drug recognition experts. And so he's kind of going through the courts and determining what is and what isn't, scientific reliability, and that's something that's being worked out in court that we think will end up working out in the police's favor. So we do have drug recognition experts that can apply a specific test after our regular standardized field sobriety test that we give for alcohol, and to be able to determine what type of narcotic that they're on. So yeah, it's something we do.
So at the moment, it's like the same sobriety approach test that you've always been administered.
Initially, and then when you roll out alcohol,
Yep.
you move on to these tests, and then New Jersey's a breath test, breath only, so you're only required to give breath. But we do in those scenarios, we ask for consent for blood or urine, or if it's a serious type thing, then we apply for some type of search warrant to obtain blood or urine. Other states, around the country are, breath and blood, so there's just some nuances to New Jersey where I'm sure it'll continuously evolve the same way that this is going to go.
There's no instant test.
No.
It's interesting because if you think about the dram shop liability, right? Like there's alcohol, from a civil liability perspective, at least, proprietors have some obligations to not overserve their customers.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe in other states like Colorado, the body law is developed enough that there is civil liability for cannabis owners, but I've never read about anything like that. I don't know if our attorneys have.
A
But,
corollary or equivalent to dram shop.
yeah, it would be interesting, wouldn't
That's a
it?
good question. If the consumption is allowed with certain limits that can be restricted or prohibited for that matter,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's
We should have
that's
some
an
sort of,
interesting, I don't know.
might just not be there yet.
And maybe they'll adapt the sobriety test itself, because, I'm sure many people would agree that if they could create a comprehensive, like, hands-on examination to perform skill sets, if you pass it, it may be a good measurement.
Yeah.
As opposed to.
Linda, I know you're virtual and you had submitted questions earlier. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to ask any questions if you have any, and I hope you're feeling better.
Well, I have a head cold, so that's why I'm not there. I'm so sorry.
1 second, we got.
I did
There
enjoy
you go.
Idaho, however. My question is about the drug recognition. I understand that's been tossed back to a special master, and right now there is no standard for determining marijuana intoxication.
What was the last part?
No, there is no, it's our understanding, there is no standard for marijuana.
Intoxication.
In the workplace or on the roadway?
Well, as you would encounter people.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you
Right
can.
now,
There's a test you can do, but the marijuana stays in blood for a long time, I guess. So it's just more your interaction with the person, and you think they may be intoxicated by the way they're acting and talking.
well, we also try and get the urine as well, and then we go by the tests that we do after the field sobriety tests. So the way we kind of treat it now is, with it being back in the special masters, it was kind of the same way when we went to the new breath tests. They kind of all get held up until they decide, and then those cases kind of move forward. So if we found somebody to be intoxicated and we believe that they were intoxicated from marijuana, we would still conduct our tests, have a drug recognition expert, do their test, and still charge them with driving under influence and base that they were intoxicated due to marijuana.
Okay, my other question has to do with keeping products out of the hands of minors. I know it's not legal for them to have them, but kids always seem to figure out a way. Do you have any comments on that?
Can you repeat that?
Just comments on that.
Oh,
Can you not hear me?
It goes in and out a little bit.
I was asking about keeping these cannabis products out of the hands of minors, and what kind of safeguards could be recommended from a law enforcement standpoint.
I mean, again, right now with the stages that it's in, my my philosophy is if I just change the name of cannabis to alcohol, and again, the same steps that we expect business owners to go through of a place that sells alcohol would be the same steps that what I would expect the cannabis place to go over, you know, checking ID, and things like that. As far as, you know, our interactions with juveniles, it's just changed a lot, even just in the last 2 years of what we expected to do, what we can do. So that does make it a little bit trickier from a law enforcement angle. So that's where we really, you know, put a lot of the onus on the business owners to make sure that they're, you know, selling it to the right type of person, right? We can't ask a juvenile or, you know, somebody under 21 to search them or things like that. You know, it's a lot of the interactions with juvenile now is really making sure that we're able to turn them over to the parents and keep them out of the you know, the juvenile justice system.
Yeah, I read there was a separate law that was passed having to do with use and possession for individuals younger than 21. And I noticed the penalties were very minimal. It doesn't seem like they were very much of a deterrent.
Yeah, so we have a, I mean, I'm not going to comment on that, whether it's a deterrent or not. But I will say that, you know, a lot of it is providing a warning. And then, you know, once they're provided with that warning, and then subsequently after that, it turns into where it could be an offense. But really, I mean, I mean, I could pull the stats, but I would say for 21 and 22, maybe we have, and again, don't hold me to this, but it's a low number, maybe 4 cannabis warnings. So it's not something we encounter a lot because it's, again, I don't want to go into, I mean, I'm not telling you how the sausage is made, but it's just different now than it was. It's, you know, I pull a car over and you smell the odor of marijuana. It's kind of the same as you smell the odor of vanilla. It's just another odor, and absent something else, it is what it is. And indicative of itself, it's not like it used to be where you smelled marijuana and it was like your ears perked up. It's now you kind of like, all right, relax. It's, you know, it's just another thing that you're kind of going with. So, and you see the short towns. I mean, the short towns are really struggling with how to deal with juveniles under the current parameters. We don't have that same problem, but we do have, you know, college houses, and we do have, you know, juveniles that just kind of go through certain things, whereas our interactions at a house party 5 years ago versus our interactions at a house party now are far different. It's kind of making sure everybody's able to care for themselves. There's no obvious crime, and there's nobody that's under duress that would need the care of a medical attention. Then it's just turning over to their parents for whatever parental discipline they feel fit, as opposed to years ago, it was kind of really involving the police department, where we were doing station house adjustments and similar things to that, where we don't have those same things available.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, has there been an uptick in terms of, like, because I can't imagine there's been honestly a drastic change in terms of when you encounter cannabis or marijuana from before it being legalized in the state versus after. I can't imagine there's a drastic change, or has there?
Well, I don't know, because the attorney general is always trying to, or not always trying, I'm trying to say this, but they're always trying to find the stats to see what's changed, but it's really hard for us to kind of, it's not going to be the same, because our interactions are going to be so much less. So it's hard to kind of say, whereas like if I pull over a 17-year-old kid now and there's the odor of marijuana, it's not a, you know, an encounter that resulted in cannabis, where in the past it most likely would have been. So it is, and again, also too, it's a lot of, you know, there's, you know, say a group of kids that were kind of together and doing whatever, there's an expectation that we kind of, hey, listen, you know, let's get on our way here, guys. Let's move it along. Where in the past, that would be more maybe an investigatory detention to make sure, you know, hey, you know, are you allowed to be out? You know, curfew type things where we're looking into where, you know, there's still certain times that it happens, but I think it's just less. Whereas, not here, because they were here, but I even see it the town that I live in, where we kind of joke, like, you know, for the football games, you're kind of almost seeing kids tailgating like we would, you know, when I was like 25, just because it's just a little bit, there seems to just be a little bit more freedom, and really outside of telling them to, knock it off and move along their way, you don't have those tools because you're not gonna ask to search the cooler because you can't. You're not gonna ask to, what they just put in their body, so it's really, it's more of a kind of, we're really relying on their, obedience to the laws, and just kind of are telling them what to do and then doing it. Like, right now, if we encounter a kid that was, had marijuana in his hand, and I'd have to say, can you give me the marijuana? And the expectation is that he's going to turn it over, and I'm not going to make it into a bigger ordeal just because he's deciding that he doesn't want to. So it's kind of unique in that way. It just changed, and it's just getting used to it, and figuring out kind of how to do it. That's why I think you see the towns putting not us, but some other towns that have a little bit more of that, juvenile presence in high numbers of having the curfews and things, because then they kind of work that angle as opposed to some of the other stuff.
Question. So I had heard like years ago that the ability, like the prevalence of alcohol amongst underage kids was much lower than cannabis, mostly because of the structured alcohol like distribution preventing access to the community of younger kids because it was all controlled. Has New Jersey or any other states reported that now having controlled distribution of cannabis has lowered access to that community of adolescents to cannabis in the same way?
I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, I haven't, it's hard because if you go law enforcement to law enforcement, if I ask the law enforcement in Colorado, they'd say terrible. But if you ask other people, that kind of, if you're not looking through the red lens all the time, it probably changes a little bit. So I don't know what the data is. I'd be interested to see. Obviously, it's the same way you are. It's not something I really thought of. Whereas because even alcohol is just in the parents' kid.
Sure.
Where does it become the same way with gummies and other edibles or even just the cannabis? I don't know. It's possible.
Sure. I guess you're right.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I have a question. It sounds like what you're saying, Chief, is that there's really no major concerns, less than 10 retail outlets in New Jersey and no specific concerns. What about, and I think you mentioned Colorado a second ago, what about other jurisdictions where it's more saturated?
So I haven't done the research into those areas. I mean, I always feel like New Jersey is just unique to New Jersey. But that is something I can look into for the next meetings to kind of see how the other states are doing with it that have legalized it. And see how it is going. I mean, I really can't give you an answer on that one, but I would be interested to see as well. So I'll look into that and kind of reach out to some of the other states that have had it and see, whether the towns that maybe still don't have anything, how it is for them versus the towns that have it.
Yeah, that'd be great. And maybe a second part to that is if law enforcement in those states are doing anything proactive in terms of, anticipating that there could be issues and how they're dealing with that.
Yeah.
I think another piece of that that I'm interested in your opinion, Chief, is so we're being asked to consider one of 6 possible classes, right? And each one probably comes with its own unique challenges. From a law enforcement perspective, is there a higher risk of criminal activity if it's a class, 2 or 3 as opposed to the 4 or 5 because it's a little bit more better controlled?
So the way I looked at it, and again, there's still not a ton of them, but the class 1, kind of having that big farm, but then I guess maybe they could grow it indoors or two. I don't really. Yeah. So I mean, Boonton has that, and for them, it's like they donated a ton of money. We love them. They support the police, all these things, and it's really just a big open space that's being used to cultivate that. So I don't have specific concerns. The manufacturing and kind of the wholesale, again, it's just like that big factory. So it's the things that they're moving it, coming in and out from a traffic standpoint, and then as far as thefts go, that's something that would be a concern. But it's also internal thefts as well from their people that are working there. Just kind of the way we see with a factory type now that isn't marijuana. The class 4 are kind of the same. Like 2, 3, and 4 to me are very similar. It's just large areas that it's I'd imagine big trucks coming in, trucks going out. So it's that additional traffic, times of the traffic would be the concern from the police. Security wise, it's like any of those other buildings that have alarms that we respond to, fire alarms and stuff, and we do that pretty regularly. And then the class 6, I mean, that's you might as well just assume it's already here, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's, something we really can't do anything about. We can restrict having the delivery service here, but we can't restrict them from coming in. And then the class 5 is the retail, and that's the one that I think, to me, just is the most visual, because that's going to draw in the individual customer. And for us, majority of businesses that we deal with as far as from a police department end is when it's customer to business owner, because it's that individual transaction. There's, like you said, the cash flow and things like that. So those are the ones that we kind of, from law enforcement perspective, we would deal with, I would think the most. But again, we're concerned about their cash. The only people that's more concerned about their cash than us is them. So if they, if they can figure, I'm sure if there's a way to keep it safe, they've come up with it. And, especially, I don't want to get into the, there's just so many nuances with the state now with, concealed carry permits and things like that. So there's just a lot of new things that are coming in where, yes, my opinion, I, always wait to see something that's going to be unique, but it's, again, all these people are smart people for a reason and kind of have, have an understanding of the way I think I have an understanding of doing police work. They have an understanding of doing business and keeping the business safe. And obviously we'd work with them and let them know specifically our concerns the same way. When the strip mall came in, my captains went out and met with every business owner over there. So, hey, who's your security contact? What kind of cameras do you have? Who do we reach out to if you have a problem? This is who we are. It's just, kind of what we try and do proactively from our end.
Real quick, and this is not necessarily to you, Chief, but open to anybody who might have an answer. In the delivery service, which is, we already know that cannot be restricted, is probably already coming into the town, as far as we know. Is there any talk of using the delivery services, other delivery services like Uber Eats or, Grubhub, those that already have an infrastructure in place for delivery, home delivery, that would
I just started the app now. Yeah. Not that I'm aware. I think that's like part of why I think they have to be licensed through that. So specific. I'll be curious to see how that goes because as long as alcohol's been around, I think we literally we couldn't get craft beer delivery until COVID. So I think I think that the licensing right now prevents that, but I'm sure as it goes, more and more people want to get involved. And I think the biggest thing is for the retail, I think the retail wants a delivery service so they can be able to deliver their product as opposed to getting that other middleman in to take it over.
I got a question about you mentioned the cash on hand, and I agree with you that owner is more concerned about that than anyone else.
Yeah.
But I recall reading something about the license that Moorestown granted, that the owners are going to have security on hand.
Yeah, a lot of the places are doing that, and a lot of the towns are, or at least not a lot of the towns that I've been talking to, they have been putting that in as part of it, where they need to have an armed security.
For the retail establishments.
Yeah. So.
Would it really be that much different than a bank needing to protect it?
Yeah,
or do they have that much? I guess it depends how much they keep on premises.
Yeah, when you first get into law enforcement, the joke is like, not joke, but you can't use your weapon to protect property, but all the armed security for the banks are carrying a gun. So
And you got to think of Dunbar.
Yeah, and they all have it, but it's again. So
is there, Chief? Is there a place in town, just from your perspective, and you might say I don't know or have an opinion, but is there an area of town that you think it would be for a retail establishment that would be easier to police? Because I think the natural inclination for retail establishments in towns is to say, well, we'll put it in, a place where nobody will see it and there's no residents around it. But it would seem to have perhaps the opposite effect if it's something that we would want to keep an eye on or keep something secure. And so just wondering what your thoughts on that would be.
For us, the way I see it, it's, you have the box, I guess, and it's like Speedwell, Hanover, Ridgedale is the areas that I'd say is where businesses, for whatever reason, seem inclined to go to. During my time, those are the only places that I've seen businesses really flock to. But
That's that whole town center mentality.
We're trying to build
worry
downtown.
You're downtown, you don't have to worry.
You guys move fast wherever you need to be. So I know your response time.
goes,
Very
tug,
quick.
you know, tug it back on John Street and, you know.
Yeah, there you
next-
go.
There you go.
That's another.
Seconded.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't think business would do well, but.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Do you know how long the retail business in Rockaway's been operating?
It's not long. Like I said, that's
There's not a big track record in terms of experience, particularly in Morris County,
Yes,
correct?
and, no, and anywhere really. I mean, when I was telling people, I was like, "There's only 9," they're like, "There's not 9," and I literally went on, you know,
Yeah.
app.com, which is a reputable media site, and their article was August 15th, and I had the list of them, and then I went on the NJ,
Yeah.
the NJ site that has and for the most part, everything is still right now medicinal. I think there's 33 that are either recreational and medicinal combined. But recreation only, there's very few. And again, talking to the, you know, right now, you know, every chief is doing what I'm doing right now,
Yeah.
really. Kind of displaying their concerns and kind of talking to people that don't have it, that are having the same thing. It's like, you know, if cannabis is legal, in my mind, it's alcohol, and it's a
Right.
business that's attracting clients that are looking to obtain a service, and there's always people that are looking to, you know, and again, for like Burlington Coat Factory or you know, the Ulta Beauties, those places that pop up. I mean, they have, you know, a significant history, so we have an understanding when they go in. Yes, they have they're known to be targeted by shoplifting crews, and
Yep.
so we're on the lookout for those, and we contact other. Whereas this is really so new, so in our head it's like, yeah, people are going to go for the cash, people are going to go for the product because it's a business, and but we don't really have the data just yet to really see, and you know.
Do we know if Hanover Township is having this conversation? So if I think about that box, right? And I think about, so Morristown's gonna put theirs on Ridgedale, and that box includes Ridgedale, and then there's Hanover, as you
Yeah.
said, and they're really developing that as a business
Yeah.
area as well. What's the likelihood that that might happen, which then, from a law enforcement perspective, how to be, so we talked last time about the fact that most people don't know when they cross that town line between Morristown and Morris Township. And same thing happens. Some people don't know when they're on the Hanover side, right? And so I wonder what that means for you from a law enforcement.
Yeah, I mean,
if
it's
Hanover's doing anything.
It's something that we certainly are aware of, and we've kind of increased some of our security measures just around the entire town, just in general, just because of, you know, kind of our car theft problem, where again, people that are coming to steal cars don't know what town they're into. So we're all kind of working collaboratively together on that, and I can reach out to the Hanover chief and see if it's something they're considering. But I mean, it is, you know, we make sure that we know what's going on in town next to us, because we could be responding when Morristown's busy. So we do keep that in mind with that. And again, they, you know, the way we're thinking about the, you know, the cash is, you know, as soon as he leaves Ridgedale Avenue, if he's not going down through, he's coming through our town, which creates an issue, and, you know.
I don't think Hanover is entertaining it, and I know Morris Plains was talking about it back in 2021, but they opted not to. And I think the last, they were looking at Route 10 to put theirs on Morris Plains, right on their Parsippany border.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the West Milford's is like tucked off of 23, so it's off the highway. You kind of have to know where you're going coming through. And yeah, like we said, Rockaway's on 46, so I mentioned, you know, either close to arteries, if not on it. Again, that's where I'm sure the person that owns the business wants it to be as visible as possible.
This is Linda Murphy again. I'm the voice up here.
Any other questions? Linda, did you have your hand raised?
I can't find my raise my hand thing, so. I was just wondering if you had given thought to coordination with you know, the neighboring communities and our school district, for that matter, as this thing matures and materializes. Is there anything that that you might recommend or think about in terms of how we assure that everybody's kind of on the same page and working together effectively to make sure that we don't have bad situations arise? And again, my concern is mostly around minors.
Yeah, I mean, I work really well with the chiefs in the other towns. I mean, myself, Morristown chief, Hanover chief have known each other, you know, as long as I've been a cop. So we do work well, and And, we do meet with the Morris School District on a regular basis. This is kind of new to us, so we haven't met necessarily about this issue. But I know, like my school resource officer at Freeling Heisen does a really great job with.
Officer Tia.
Yeah, Officer Tia. She does a great job making sure she's up on, all the cannabis issues, and the same as the school resource officer in Morristown as well. It is something that we're, stay on top of, and but as far as this, still kind of new of what we're doing with it, but I will make sure that we're kind of on the same page with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's 21 plus, just like for alcohol, to purchase cannabis,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. So the underage threshold for us with everything now is pretty much 21. And that was like back to the searches and things like that. It's 20 for us considered underage outside of the criminal element of actual crimes is 21.
Yeah, Officer Tia did a great job. My son's going into 7th next year, but he had her for 6th grade help, and he came home, he knew, wow. He's like, Mom, you won't believe. And I was like, oh, no, I figured.
And again, I think, legal cannabis is new. Us teaching kids about marijuana is kind of old hat, and the kids are pretty smart now. And, I'd say if this was like a new thing that came out, we would be in the auditorium giving that big speech and things like that. But I think, we kind of changed the name a little bit, and we started to regulate it, but the kids, still know. And then, as part of our lead teaching, it's, it'll be the marijuana and cannabis, or cannabis and marijuana, so that they're aware of it. And I think, again, there's been a lot of people out there with, parents that were really sick that were being prescribed this for some time. So it's that part of it, the education part of that, I think has been ongoing. The business side I think it's going to be the new side, and just unique.
Quick question on a new topic. For many years, we've heard that marijuana is a gateway drug. From a law enforcement perspective, have you found that, or is there any data that suggests that marijuana is a gateway drug to anything harder?
Well,
I mean, I'm sure it's going to come up.
No, I know, but I'll limit my education and all I can say is, in my career and my kids that we dealt with, and we told the parents that this kid's having issues, and we're dealing with them. We unfortunately dealt with them for worse things down the road. Now, there was plenty of kids that I'm sure used, marijuana that we didn't encounter, and were able to kind of go about their life and have productive lives. But I just know that the kids that we dealt with on a regular basis, that we, whether it was, a lot of it was through, initially with them in marijuana and experimenting, is we did deal with them later on. Now, whether that was their gateway or it's because they had so much bad stuff going on that they were using marijuana, and the bad stuff continued, so they started using other things. I'm not an expert in that category. I know, for me, as a parent, I'm scared of my kid, getting knee surgery because he would get prescribed pills. I'm scared of, a shoulder injury because they could be prescribed. So I'm also concerned about them vaping because I think that, but I'm also concerned about that, I gotta go, like my kids, it was like SIDS, choking, drowning, drugs, DWI, like that's how kind of, the paranoia of my life goes as far as kids, because, it just, as they get older, there's more things that they can encounter. And one of those things is marijuana, and they can learn that it's not for me, it's not a good thing, or they can learn, and then they tumble down the hill. So, is it a concern of mine for kids to be, using marijuana to cope with anxiety or things that they need to be talking with a professional about? Absolutely. But again, that's more my place with my kids than, the community, other than if a parent wants to have a conversation, like, I would be concerned if your kid needs marijuana every day,
Right.
Same as myself, if I needed, some type of substance that, if my day was so bad every single day, well, maybe I need to find an outlet that's healthy, So yes, it is, but I'm not going to say it's the end all be all, but if I was a parent, it's something that I would have on the radar. As the chief of police, it's something that I made sure that, when we're interacting with the kids and young adults, that my guys know that, the things that we can offer them, the services that we can provide outside of handcuffs it's important. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Tim, I know you're in a car. Did you have any further comments or questions for the chief? I don't know if they'll be able to unmute. But... Okay. Any questions or comments from the professionals?
Nothing I can think of. I think I covered everything on my end.
There's maybe just one general observation beyond, because it seems apparent that the primary focus of law enforcement with respect to the 6 licensed businesses is retail. And I guess just not to lose sight of the other areas of regulation, enforcement, concern being just general public health and safety and what I would consider zoning related concerns, particularly with the other classes, to the extent that the board might consider a recommendation with respect to any one or more of the other 5 classes other than retail. So as you pointed out, odor is an issue, particularly down in Reddington. There was a Walmart that was converted to a hydroponics facility, promised no odor. There's odor, apparently. It's in the papers all the time for years now. Those things are handled by other either zoning ordinances or health and safety ordinances that might not necessarily fall under police enforcement. And there's state regulations, county regulations. So I guess this is a component of it, law enforcement, but there's other things to be concerned about, either vis-a-vis considering another licensed business, or if such another licensed business is considered, then how to regulate it if it is considered. Traffic with respect to manufacturing, wholesaling, distributing, just like perhaps any other industrial use, truck traffic, noise, and the like. So this is very helpful, I think, and I'm just trying to also incorporate it into the larger picture of what other issues beyond law enforcement related issues should be considered by the group. So.
Sorry, one quick thing. Public consumption is still prohibited of cannabis, right? It's like you can't
It's like
drink
smoking
in
cigarettes.
public. Oh,
Yeah.
it is like smoking cigarettes.
Yeah,
so it's fine.
you can further restrict, but I'm not saying it's fine, like smoking, you can't smoke in public, like the public places that you can't.
Oh, I see what you're
Yes.
saying.
Yeah,
Yes.
public property.
Yes.
Public
Yeah, sorry,
property.
yeah, public property, yeah.
Okay, right. So if you're sitting on the, you can't just on a street corner, right?
So
Okay.
it's barred from federal property. Federal law doesn't, well, it's not.
That's true, yeah.
So Chief, is it fair to say, this, the point you just raised, of the 6 classes, licensed classes, the only issue, putting aside the odor issue for a second, the only issue is that, I guess, requires further delving into is the retail license, right? The other
Yeah. for
5 classes are,
sure. The
other
other,
than the odor point.
the other,
Well, traffic and other
Yes.
zoning related,
Yes,
I would
zoning,
add.
yes.
Yeah.
police related.
But from a police.
Police
enforcement.
perspective is really seeing, delving into the other town's ordinances as far as what they required as security, the on-site security. But yeah, I would say that's from my perspective, but what I'm envisioning is the retail is seeing what the other towns are doing as far as the security. Each one's a little bit different. So I think some require 2, some require 1. But it does seem like the bulk, again, in a small minority, at least the new ones popping up, are the armed security.
Yeah.
All right, 15 minutes on the hot seat, that's pretty good. Thanks for joining us.
Miss Murphy certainly hit me with the hardest one.
She always does.
No, thank you, Chief, for coming in. If anyone has any follow-up questions, shoot me an email. I'll pass them along to the chief and he'll get back to you. But yeah, with that was the main focus for tonight. I don't know if Tim can talk, but we're going to try to see if we can talk about product and broad numbers in terms of tax revenue, but I'm assuming if he's driving, we can't do that, so we'll punt that to the next meeting.
Can I just ask a quick
Sure.
question on that? Is the revenue percentage available for all 6 classes, or is that only on retail?
I believe it was different.
All of them. But there are
What the rate
differences
was the
between
rate.
1% and 2%. I think like
Yeah.
4 was 2% and
Yeah.
the other 2 were 1%.
Are we talking about the local tax?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Retail's
one-
2%.
It's
Okay.
2% for all of them, but wholesale is 1%
Yeah,
on the
and
tax. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So aside from that, so we'll get some more information on like the numbers and revenue side of things with the professionals that come in. So, but if everyone's good, we'll then I guess adjourn to October 4th. If everyone can just kind of double check right now, I know the professionals are probably gonna have conflicts, but we can certainly figure that out. But at least from the volunteer members, we can confirm October 4th and October 17th. That would be great.
It's on my calendar.
And let me triple check to make sure I'm not giving you the wrong date.
You know, those are the dates.
Yeah.
Those are the
Got
two,
from the
yeah,
first,
those are
okay.
good.
So yeah, so October 4th will be the folks, folks from Morristown who went through their whole process. And then the 17th will be folks from the broader cannabis industry who can talk about the statewide rollout and economics and changing regulations and all that stuff.
The revenue that Tim's gonna talk about, that's gonna be on the 4th.
No, I think Susanna, who's coming on the 17th, can talk about that. And we're definitely gonna be pre-submitting questions too. So in the next month or so, if you think of questions, shoot me an email. We have a bit of a break, but if you have anything to think about or talk about, just let me know in the meantime. Otherwise, we'll have a whole month off, more than a month off, which.
Mark, this is Lynn.
Yep.
Is there anything we can learn from Morristown since they just went through an approval process? And could we go to school on them and try to figure out what they learned through their approval process that might be helpful to us?
We definitely can. So if you want to hear from a municipal perspective, I can reach out to see if they can join us. We will be hearing from the applicant perspective in Morristown on the 4th. So I don't know if that's if it'll be more of an overlap. I can ask them both to be there at the same meeting.
No. I think maybe the applicant is one that would have the most information for us in terms of revenues and security and yada yada, things they have to consider. So maybe that's sufficient if they have information to share.
Yeah, I think let's try that route, and if we need to talk to from the municipal officials, we can certainly follow up with them.
Okay,
And
that's good. Thank you. You're ahead of me.
I just a recommendation on the revenues, and I've had some experience in some other municipalities that I advise, and I talked to Tim a little bit about this. I think we should try and get a real good handle on the revenues, because some of the estimates to me are through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be new competition, which may blow that away. And I'm hearing stories. One of my municipal administrators shared with me an email where he talked to other communities, and the numbers are out of sight. And I mean, just intuitively, I think they're unrealistic. And I'll just give you a quick example to leave you with. And I won't name the name of the towns because it's probably proprietary at this point. But, one of the towns is considering a retail operator, and they had projected municipal revenues over a 7-year period. So you can average it every which way of $3 million. So that's over $400,000 a year, which means the gross revenue is $20 million a year for a retailer.
Wow.
And I mean,
Blessing them in.
that may be true, but I'm just,
Yeah.
my instincts tell me there's no way.
This will be multiple licenses, not one retail.
Well, this is one,
20 million for one retail.
yeah. And a highway commercial location in Morris County, and I'm not gonna say what municipality it is, but
Yeah.
that's what the operator that they're entertaining has come in with a revenue estimate. And then I saw some other figures that were shared with me where the administrator in this town talked to other administrators. And they were talking about revenues that were like in that ballpark range. I mean, but how long can that be sustained, even if it's a realistic number in the short term? Because
Yeah,
there's
the
no
market gets
competition.
saturated.
If that's
Yeah, right.
realistic,
I
they're
mean,
probably talking
I was
about-
blown away.
I mean,
I gotta tell you.
for that to be realistic, they're probably looking at like 300 customers a day. Because I think the average.
But
sales
I saw one of the
probably
emails he
$200.
shared with me, and the administrator in the town said they are out the door into the street every day coming in. Now,
Yeah.
that's gonna wear off to some extent, and there's gonna be competition, but
Yeah.
I think you should
But
do
300
some,
customers at a retail store today,
some of
that's
your
not a
own
lot.
research in
Yeah.
other towns, getting a sense as to what the projections and some of the revenues that have already been collected. I think it would really help going forward to do that, because these numbers just blew me out of the water.
And it would be interesting if they did a projection based upon the possibility that there would be competition
Competition,
coming
yeah.
down the road. So is
I
that-
don't think they did here,
Right?
but that's just what,
Exactly.
you know.
To get to that amount
Yeah,
of money.
but I just think
absolutely.
that's important, because again, my own experience, I shared this last meeting, that, a lot of the towns that originally opted out to wait to see how this was gonna play out, now see these numbers being thrown about, and it's like, holy mackerel, I could use this revenue of several $100,000 a year.
Right.
I mean, it's real money.
Right, but that'll saturate the market then.
But there can only be so many retail stores depending on how many,
License.
but how much marijuana they can cultivate.
Yeah.
Right, that's one of the
Yeah,
issues.
exactly.
Retail goes up to
Operation.
cultivate.
Yeah, good point.
Right?
You can only sell what New Jersey
Produces,
grows.
yeah.
And the
what
prices
they
There are
are
nothing
high in New
growers.
Jersey right
Yeah.
now. I mean, the prices are gonna come down half of what they are easily in the next
Yeah.
2 to 3 years. Maybe more.
Yeah.
So I don't.
I think that,
Yeah.
that's something that I think is really, important for this committee to consider as part of, its decision going forward.
Well, yeah, exactly, because we already know there's one in Morristown. So if we do that, you can't imagine that this could be a full, the full amount of revenue, or are we gonna, now we're going to Morristown opens a second one and we open one, how's that gonna factor in and all that stuff? Or if Morris Plains and Hanover change their tune.
And
How many
we-
towns we have bordering us, Jim? We have like 7 towns bordering us,
I
right?
should know that number of 7 sounds good.
Yeah. So there's a lot of outside factors on that too. So.
Well, yeah, you have to, that's a question from residents too down the road, like Morris Township, why won't you permit this? You're leaving money on the table. And so if you have to do your due diligence, I think it's fiscal responsibility to figure out what is realistic or not. And like, not just throw,
Yeah.
those numbers being thrown around, people are gonna hear that and be like, what was my elected officials thinking?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, of course, there's the other extreme of it, which would say, what were you thinking?
Right.
But either way, you can't win. So it's very good at.
Yeah,
worthwhile
and that
exercise.
dovetails with how many licenses you're willing to grant.
Yep.
Right?
And your immediately adjacent neighbors,
Yeah.
Exactly.
neighboring municipalities.
But I think to your point though, and at least from my observation with our first meeting conversations and then this one, weighing the advantages and the disadvantages, as we consider a recommendation, it's taking those disadvantages into consideration as well, so that the residents of the town have some confidence, whether they like it or not, that, they've looked at both sides, to try to make a really good decision.
I think
for
that's
the
gonna be
commission.
part of the report that is gonna be written, is that whole pros and cons kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, I'm curious what the industry folks are gonna say. What do they need most of? Obviously, they need the farmland to actually start, cultivating, but I'm curious about, the warehousing or the manufacturing too, and what's in demand. Or maybe it's not retail that would pose the biggest revenue for us, but then that will require us much larger space and we don't have a lot of that, so, yeah.
And the hydroponics is a different kind of farm, right?
Right,
It's the cube warehouses. I can foresee the cube warehouses becoming hydroponics cubes and going up in the air. And I'm not saying that's not a personal judgment, but
It's factory
they seem
farming
to
of the
find
future.
they seem to find a way. Or and that's why you got to stay vigilant.
I have one thing I wanted to
Sure.
add. I apologize if others don't agree with me. I think like the discourse after these conversations are just as valuable as anything else. And I wonder if like right now, it sounds like we have that last meeting that we're kind of imagining, like where we know which experts are coming to talk to us. But I wonder if there's value in just considering like one more after where we don't have new information coming to the table, where all of us are just sitting and going over everything we just talked
That's a
about
good
and
idea.
thought through. Because I feel like I would feel more comfortable knowing that there was like an intentional discourse of like when we're really all talking about everything we've heard. Because it's tough to fully consider everything the chief said today without the context of the next things we're gonna hear. But then I want to make sure we all had some space to really go back through it.
And that would help with the report writing. So I
Yeah.
think that's a very
Yeah.
good idea.
no, I think it's great. I think that's, initially, I think I had that in the 5 meeting schedule. So I'll put that on. I'll come up with another meeting date after October 17th, where I think we'll hear public comment. And then after we close it, we'll then have a discussion. This way we hear it from the public and in our.
You could do, and cut it, and then we could
Yeah.
have both with that fresh.
Yeah, good
So, all
thinking.
right, we'll do that. That sounds good. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Very good.
Thanks for the members of the public we're on, looks like we have three members of the
Bobby,
public joining us, so
Thank you.
have a good night,
Thank you
everyone.
for your
Thank you so
time.
much.
That's great.
Oh, no worries. Thank you.